Hello, my name is Tamidra Wilkins. Welcome to my Interpersonal Communication Project presentation. In this presentation, I will discuss my master goal for communication in my life and how it relates to enlarging the conversation. I will also discuss how my background and behavioral blend have influenced my conversation. My project will also include an analysis of the potential barriers in my interpersonal context and how I will deal with each one. I will also identify and provide solutions to noise pollution, as well as develop a plan of action to improve my interpersonal communication skills in such a way that will invite others to join the conversation, even where there is resistance or conflict. Let's begin with my master goal on the next slide. My master goal for my life in terms of communication is to be able to utilize the concept of self-disclosure to enlarge the conversation. Our Stewart text defines self-disclosure as revealing to another person how you perceive and are reacting to the present situation and giving any information about yourself and your past that is relevant to an understanding of your perceptions and reactions to the present. Another way of thinking about it is, self-disclosure brings to mind earnest conversations about our deepest hopes and fears. But self-disclosure is also about simply sharing our preferences for music, food, or books. These can play an equally important role in forming relationships as those deep and meaningful conversations. Let's discuss enlarging the conversation on the next slide. In the Stewart text, he explains the 6 features of communication, which are meaning, choice, culture, identity, conversation, and nexting. In understanding these 6 features, it is apparent that enlarging the conversation means being people-oriented and having the ability to properly analyze and conduct an appropriate conversation for various situations. In my opinion, you have to make a real attempt to understand, empathize, and listen to who you are communicating with in order to enlarge the conversation. I'll continue discussing this on the next slide. In order to understand and empathize with who you are attempting to communicate with, you have to be able to relate your own emotions and thoughts to theirs in some way. Self-disclosure can help when it comes to being able to relate to who you are communicating with. If you're able to share your own feelings, reactions, and even personal stories that fit the situation, you're oftentimes able to deepen a relationship. Self-disclosure, when used appropriately, can create strong relationships by creating strong conversations. Let's find out more about the influence self-disclosure has had on my life by finding out more about my background and behavioral blend on the next slide. Growing up in an artistic family who enjoys art, photography, and poetry has allowed me to freely express myself in the written form. Therefore, self-disclosure in written form is not difficult for me and is a God-given gift that I am most comfortable with. Self-disclosure in a verbal form is much more difficult for me. My behavioral blend may provide more insight into why verbal communication is quite the challenge for me. Let's go to the next slide to find out more. From the Carbonell text, as well as the self-assessment, I have learned a lot about myself. The S, passive, people-oriented temperament says that I am steady, stable, shy, security-oriented, a servant, submissive, and a specialist. The shy part of my S temperament often prohibits me from using self-disclosure in a conversation. I find myself shying away from sharing my emotions and thoughts with others verbally. I'll explain more on the next slide. My I, active people-oriented temperament describes me as being inspiring, influencing, inducing, impressing, interactive, and interested in people. These characteristics are evident when I am writing poetry or blog posts. My uniquely used self-assessment also helped me to understand more about myself. The next slide gives us that information. My uniquely used self-assessment came to this conclusion. You think people expect you to be the nicest and kindest individual possible. You feel that others want you to be sensitive, loving, and sacrificing. You sometimes are a little vulnerable, and people may try to use you or take advantage of you. You tend to desire being behind the scenes and to support others whether or not it is possible. Your caring and gracious service makes you a jewel, even if people don't recognize you. You think people want you to be meek and quiet, but you should be more outgoing and expressive. You can learn to take charge and improve your aggressiveness once you see the long-term benefits of helping others. You think people want you to be behind the scenes, but serving others sometimes requires that you step out and take charge. Let's go to the next slide. My desire to be behind the scenes goes along with the shy description of my personality. However, as my uniquely used self-assessment suggests, there are times when I have to come out of the shadows into the light in order to be of assistance to others. Being able to relate to others by sharing my own feelings and thoughts is a way to step out of the shadows and into the light of a fruitful conversation. The next slide discusses the barriers that I face. Wanting to remain behind the scenes is a barrier itself in my interpersonal context. My job as a caseworker has helped me to overcome this barrier in many ways by helping me to realize that I cannot provide the assistance a person needs if I am always the quiet person behind the scenes. Realizing the importance of others' needs as well as their dependency on my services will help me to better deal with this particular barrier. Let's go to the next slide to find out more. Half listening is another barrier in my interpersonal context. Sometimes it is easy for me to get so caught up in the fast-paced flow of the day that I do not always fully listen to what my clients are telling me. Listening is a vital part of great communication and even self-disclosure. How will I know what to share with a person if I am not even really listening to what they are sharing with me? The Burley-Allen text states, listening involves a more sophisticated mental process than hearing. It demands energy and discipline. Listening is a learned skill. The first step is to realize that effective listening is an active, not a passive process. A skilled listener does not just sit there and allow listening to happen. Let's go to the next slide to find out what the Peterson text says about listening. James Jim Peterson has laid out a valuable foundation for us as listeners in his book, Why Don't We Listen Better? Communicating and Connecting in Relationships. From this foundation, we are able to better build our listening skills and make a positive difference in our conversations. Peterson has a rather unique way of explaining his concepts to his readers by using images we can relate to help us understand our lack of proper listening skills. His listener talker card is a quick guideline that will help us turn any conversation into a fruitful dialogue. For the purposes of self-disclosure, I find the talker part of the card most interesting. The goals of the talker are to share their feelings and share their thoughts without accusing, attacking, labeling, and judging. I will overcome the barrier of half listening by improving my listening technique as suggested by both the Burley-Allen text and the Peterson text. Let's go to the next slide to discuss possible distractions in communicating. There are a lot of factors that prohibit great communication, and in my case, self-disclosure. Sometimes there's so much to do in a day, I just don't feel like there's enough time to go into further details. Short and sweet conversations unfortunately become the go-to solution. Then there is the shy factor that keeps me from revealing how I feel and what I think. The truth is, every conversation has value. I have to learn how to value each conversation and to know that during that particular time, that conversation is what matters. Also, I have to feel confident in knowing that what I feel and what I think could possibly add value to the conversation. Let's conclude this presentation with an action plan and a final thought on the next slide. To improve my interpersonal communication skills, I will first see the value of the person I am talking to by seeing them as Jesus does. I will fully listen to them with a non-judgmental ear and a heart that is ready to help in whatever way I can. When necessary, I will use my own experiences in life to relate to them. As a caseworker, I often see resistance, conflict, and defensive personalities. It is important to remember that despite it all, God loves each and every one of us. It takes a patient heart, oftentimes, to help others feel comfortable in a conversation. However, learning how to be the proper listener and the proper talker can make all the difference in the world. Thank you.